In 30 years, most of the world's largest economies will be those that are emerging today, surpassing current behemoths like the US, Japan, and Germany. The US has been the world's largest economy for a long time, but those dynamics are quickly changing as China and India and other emerging markets gain momentum. So in today's video, we will be looking into those countries that are being projected to become the world's leading economic power by 2050 and why. However, before we go further, please do well to like and subscribe to this channel. So with that being said, investors should be aware of these global changes and position their portfolios to avoid home country bias through increased international diversification. Diversification also helps with hedging against potential geopolitical risks that may arise from power struggles. Although Brexit, coronavirus, and trade tips may be making economic headwinds, however, despite these immediate challenges, the world economy is projected to keep growing at a rapid pace over the next few decades. In fact, by 2050, the global market is projected to double its current size, even as the UN forecasts the world's population will only grow by a modest 26%. This growth will bring with it plenty of changes. Though it can be challenging to predict exactly how the future will unfold, most economists agree on one thing. Today's developing markets will be tomorrow's economic superpowers, as the US has been experiencing a shift in productivity. Manufacturing and non-farm business sector productivity have been declining since the early 2000s. One of the key indicators used to measure productivity is GDP, which has been rising in the US since the 1950s. But now, countries with large populations have been closing the gaps between their productivity and GDP, and the US at the same time. Globalization driven by communication technology has accelerated the transfer of technology around the world. These trends suggest that population size, rather than innovation, will once again become a key driver of economic growth. China and India were the largest economies in the world before the mid-19th century, due to their large populations. In those days, economic output was a function of the population rather than productivity. The Industrial Revolution added productivity to the equation. The US then became the world's largest economy by 1890. Innovations in manufacturing, finance, and technology have helped the US maintain this status till today. But will the US stay in the top spot in the years to come? Well, according to reports, in the next 30 years, 6 of the 7 of the world's largest economies will be today's emerging economies, surpassing the US, Japan, and Germany. Even relatively smaller economies like Vietnam, the Philippines, and Nigeria will see huge leaps in their respective rankings over the next 3 decades. China, as measured by GDP by purchasing power parity, which adjusts for price level differences across countries, already has one of the largest economies in the world. The Asian giant has seen massive economic gains over the past decade, but economists promise that it is just the tip of the iceberg for what the future holds. The big economic changes are happening right in front of our eyes. Also, India, the world's second most populous country, is expected to see massive growth over the next 3 decades, averaging 5% growth in GDP per year, according to the report, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. By 2050, India is projected to be the world's second largest economy, overtaking the United States, and will account for 15% of the world's total GDP. The positive outcomes of that growth have already started to make an impact on residents. The economy growing has led to manifold changes in people's lifestyles, from the vibes in the city to the attitudes in society, and eventually the overall walk and talk of the country and its inhabitants. For instance, there has been a major upgrade in the quality of televisions, mobile phones, and car brands over the past 15 years, while air travel has become increasingly accessible and houses have become more posh and rich. We also expect to see Brazil, this South American powerhouse, set to be the world's 5th largest economy by 2050, overtaking Japan, Germany, and Russia in the process. With its abundance of natural resources, Brazil has grown its economy rapidly in the past few decades, but faces challenges as it struggles to control government corruption and inflation that has plagued the country in recent years. Some of these challenges have enabled Brazil to be an early adopter of technology. In many developing countries, High growth translates to high inflation. As a result of the high cost of protecting cash against inflation, Brazil became a fintech pioneer, as PayPal and Venmo equivalents have been the daily routine in Brazil for 20-plus years, even before smartphones. Also, Nigeria, one of Africa's largest economies, is poised to grow by leaps and bounds by 2050, at an average of 4.2% year-on-year, rising 8 places from 22nd to 14th in the rankings. While the government has struggled with corruption, residents have an entrepreneurial attitude that keeps pushing the country forward. According to Global Entrepreneurship Monitor data, more than 30% of Nigerian residents are new entrepreneurs or the owner-manager of a new business, among the highest rate in the world. Furthermore, it has been projected that France will no longer be a top 10 economy by 2050. It's being pushed out by Mexico, which will become the 7th largest economy in the world by 2050. Overall, the global economy will double in size by 2042, growing at an average rate of 2.6% between 2016 and 2050. These growth rates will be primarily driven by emerging market countries, including Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Russia, and Turkey. These countries are expected to grow at an above-average 3.5% rate compared to just a 1.6% average rate for Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the US. So over the next 30 years, China and India are expected to have the highest average investment rates at 33 to 34% per year. The UK and Germany are projected to invest at the lowest rate, at 17 to 18% per year. Technological progress and productivity-spreading technology will bolster world economic growth. Developing countries will continue to absorb well-established technologies, like electricity and sanitation. Since newer technologies like mobile phones and the internet are spreading rapidly to developing countries, partly because they are relatively inexpensive and require little government expenditure on infrastructure. Though advanced countries will remain the dominant source of cutting-edge technological innovation, a few developing countries with rich pools of highly educated individuals may also innovate at the frontier, and many more developing countries will innovate by modifying technologies to suit local conditions. However, these GDP projections from now through 2050 are made under the assumption that markets stay open and macroeconomic policies remain sound. Additionally, economic, natural, or geopolitical catastrophes are assumed not to occur. Therefore, these projections represent only an educated assessment of the present direction of the international economy. So without any unprecedented catastrophe, the world's economic balance of power is expected to rapidly shift, and the trend has only been accelerated by the global recession. China remains on a path to overtaking the United States as the world's largest economic power, and India will join as a global leader by mid-century. However, traditional Western powers will remain the wealthiest nations in terms of per capita income, but will be overtaken as the predominant world economies by much poorer countries. Given the sheer magnitude of the challenge of lower wage competition, protectionist pressures in advanced economies may escalate. This global economic transformation will shift international relations in unpredictable ways. To retain their historic influence, European nations will be pressed to conduct foreign policy jointly, an objective implied by their recently ratified constitution, and will need to reach out to emerging powers. Japan and Russia will seek new frameworks of alliances. The largest emerging nations may, however, come to see each other as rivals. As absolute poverty will be confined to small pockets in sub-Saharan Africa and India, though relative poverty will persist and may even become more acute. Let's not also forget that carbon emissions are also on a path toward climate catastrophe, and by mid-century it may constitute a serious risk to this global growth forecast. So that's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do well to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. Bye.